Lamb and The French Dispatch, which I finally got around to seeing. All of those I've kind of done quick takes on. Today, I picked it back up with Tick Tick Boom, Lin-Manuel Miranda's musical, based on the Jonathan Larson musical with Andrew Garfield. Garfield was fantastic, and everything that I've seen of Jonathan Larson, naturally we see footage of him at the end of the movie, because of course we do, because it is essentially a biopic, as well as a musical. And Drew Garfield was fantastic. I think of his main performances in terms of this and The Eyes of Tammy Faye. I'm not including No Way Home. Spoiler alert, he's in No Way Home, if you didn't already know. Uh, if you did, well, you might have read my review where I do discuss that he and Tobey Maguire are in it. But he's fantastic in Tick Tick Boom. I think the filmmaking's a bit shaggy. Lin Manuel Miranda is a decent filmmaker. I don't think he does a particularly great job, but actually I kind of like how loose the filmmaking is of this. It shouldn't necessarily be something like In the Heights. It shouldn't necessarily be something like West Side Story. And I actually kind of like that. So, and then the music is terrific. I've loved Rent since I saw the Chris Columbus movie in 2005. So, I really love that movie, and it really, it's funny because it's Tick Tick Boom is about Jonathan Larson, the anxiety Jonathan Larson was going through as he was getting ready to turn 30. And one of the things that he talks about in the story is that he's stressing out that Sondheim had his first musical on Broadway at 27. And I think one of those things is until you get to 30, I don't think you can appreciate just how stressful turning 30 is. Um, I know 30 for me was a really pivotal year, and I have very quiet 30th birthday. Like I basically went out to dinner with my parents after working, and I think that was about it. Uh, I just didn't really do much that day. A month later, I was going to be in the hospital with pneumonia and a collapsed lung, but that's another story for a different day. Uh, and I'll probably be telling you on a podcast here in the future. But one of the things that I was dealing with as I was turning 30 is the fact that I'd been at the theater for about 6 years. I'd had big ambitions when I was in college of being a film composer, being a filmmaker, even. And I'd already started working on my film in Wimble Hand at this point. And I'd already scored some short films for some friends at this point. And, but at the same time, I had the responsibilities of adulthood, and in that entailed paying bills, and that involved continuing to work at the theater. I had Sonic Cinema going, but Sonic Cinema at the time was really a hobby for me. It wasn't really something that I loved doing it, but I also didn't necessarily see it as what I want to do for the rest of my life. I had bigger ambitions. And that was weighing on me when I was 30. And it didn't help that I wasn't at the same time position in my life that my parents were when they were 30, because around the time they were turning 30, they were having me, and they'd already been married for a few years, and they were having me, and that that pressure, that anxiety of I need to have my shit together, but I don't have my shit together. That's one of the things that is so great about Tick Tick Boom, and that's one of the things that I really identified with it. I still don't even know if it's my favorite musical of the year because I loved West Side Story and I love Cyrano. Um, but Tick Tick Boom is a movie that I can completely see myself connecting with in the same way that I did Rent. Because, Rent is kind of about that same type of situation where it's like you're an adult, but you don't feel like you're an adult because you have these passions that you want to do that sort of are out of step with what the responsibilities of life are. And and that's something that Larson really captured so beautifully in both of those musicals. I mean, Tick Tick Boom is much more autobiographical, but it's in that way it is really vital and it's really something that is inspiring. And I really love that about him, and I think Garfield captures that so very well. I mean, that's part of the reason why I can't really complain too much about the filmmaking on Miranda's part. Because if you look at Rent, you see what Chris Columbus did. Chris Columbus is a considerably stronger filmmaker uh, than Lin-Manuel Miranda, but he kind of saw that in order to make that material feel alive on screen, it's got to be a little rough around the edges. I mean, it can't be polished and precise like you'd normally do a musical. And so I think that's one of the things that was so impactful for me about uh, Tick Tick Boom. And it's one of those things where I is that going to be one of my favorites? I don't know. I'm still kind of sussing out whether that's going to be make the cut for me, but it's one where I can see myself returning to it and really appreciating it even more and even more because uh, I love movies that I can see a part of my life in it and one of the movies that were I was on my list of best films from 1998 or 1996, sorry. And I wrote about when I wrote about the movie earlier this year, Steve Buscemi's Trees Lounge. And it's funny because of the fact that I'm not a drinker. I'm not an alcoholic. I've never had like a bar that I could go to where it's like I could just relax. That wasn't who I was, but the feelings that you get out of his character in Steve Buscemi's character in that movie, I remember moments in my life where I felt the same way, and it's funny because I saw the movie considerably before my 20s and 30s, but I love the movie in my I love the movie when I saw it in 96, 97. Is that because I kind of felt that that might be the direction of my life? Is it because of the fact that I even then kind of recognized something about myself I wasn't even necessarily ready to admit at that point? I don't know. But rewatching it earlier this year was just a wonderful experience. And, that's kind of the same thing I kind of felt about Tick Tick Boom. And it's on Netflix, obviously. It's well worth checking out. Andrew Garfield is fantastic in it. If you're a fan of the songs of Ren, I think this is really going to connect with you on a musical level. Jonathan Larson was very particular as a musical storyteller, And I think those two musicals really show that very well. I mean, I think Miranda, even if the filmmaking prowess is not great, I think I think it's obvious that he has a lot of affection for Larson. And so I would say Tick Tick Boom for that reason alone is well worth it. Um, this weekend, before I was able to get dive